Eden wasn't just a garden, it was a temple. When most people imagine Eden, they see a garden. Trees heavy with fruit, rivers flowing gently, animals moving peacefully, a beautiful place where the first humans lived. But the Bible is quietly describing something far more powerful. Eden was not just a place to live, it was a place where heaven and earth touched. The language used in Genesis is not random. Gold is mentioned, precious stones are named, rivers flow outward, sacred boundaries are described, and most importantly, God is said to walk among humans. Later in Scripture, when God instructs Israel to build the tabernacle and then the temple, the same type of language appears again. Gold, sacred space, boundaries between holy and common, God's presence dwelling in a specific place. This is not coincidence. Genesis is quietly telling us that Eden was the first sanctuary, the first holy dwelling place, the first earthly space designed to host the presence of God. Eden was a garden, but it was also a temple. Adam and Eve were not only caretakers of plants and animals, they were guardians of sacred space. Their role was not just to farm, their role was to protect, host, and reflect God's presence on earth. Humanity's first job was priestly. Before there were altars, before there were sacrifices, before there were robes and rituals, there was humanity walking with God inside sacred space. This means something profound. Humans were created not just to live on earth, but to turn earth into a place where God's presence could dwell. Eden was meant to be the starting point. From that sacred center, God's presence was meant to spread outward, from garden to land to the whole world. Humanity was designed to carry God's presence beyond Eden. In other words, humans were living temples, not buildings, not structures, but living reflections of heaven on earth. When sin entered, something deeper than disobedience happened. It was not just a rule that was broken, sacred space was violated. Eden was no longer safe for the same level of divine presence. The humans were not just removed from a garden, they were removed from direct access to God's dwelling place. Cherubim were placed at the entrance, not just to guard trees, but to guard sacred space. This is why later in Scripture, God's presence becomes restricted. Only certain people, only certain times, only certain places. The tabernacle, the temple, the Holy of Holies. What was once open in Eden becomes protected and limited, because holiness and brokenness cannot freely mix. But the story does not end there. The entire biblical story becomes one long journey back to Eden, a journey back to God dwelling fully with humanity, from garden to tent to temple to Jesus. When Jesus appears, something shocking happens. God does not return to a building. God puts on flesh. The presence that once filled Eden now walks again among humans, not in a garden, but in a body. Jesus becomes the living temple. And then after him, Scripture says something even more shocking. Believers become the temple. Not stone, not gold, not walls, living people. The Eden design returns, God dwelling with humanity again. The story of Eden was never just about fruit and trees. It was about God's desire to live with his creation, to walk among them, to dwell with them, to make earth a reflection of heaven. Eden was not just where humans lived. Eden was where God lived with humans. And the entire Bible can be seen as one long story of God finding his way back to that place, not through geography, but through hearts.